now for the Shop Report with
What up, sports fans? Welcome to the Shop Report. I'm Barbershop Jay. I'll be your host for the day. Here's what's happening. If you're up and around, you're out and about, and you want to give us a shout, the number to call is area code 267-687-0026. Once again, that number to call, area code 267-687-0026. Before we get started today, we want to remind you all that the Shop Report is now being brought to you by none other than the fine folks over at Rocket Digital. If you find yourself in need of services such as marketing consulting, media production, or social media advertising, and of course a host of other digital services, hop on over to their Facebook page at RDM Detroit. Once again, that's at RDM Detroit, and tell them Jay from the shop sent you. Oh, and if that don't work, you can hit them up on their website, rocketdigital.net. That's ROCKIT digital.net. Joining me on the program today, unfortunately, my man, Brother Richard, is off today. He was chillaxing, hollering at my man Kobe out in Double J. What is that he was at today? Kobe's what? What is that, the fitness center or whatever it is?
That's right. And unfortunately, it was where he was destined on that fateful morning.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right. He was on his way there. Yeah, so Brother Richard is out paying his respects and so on and so forth. He will be joining us or be back with us next week. But we got my man from up north, Joey James, a.k.a. Double J. Tell the people what you say.
Well, I'm going to fill in for Brother Rich here and say it's an honor and pleasure to be joining our guest today that you'll be introducing here momentarily.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, want to give a special shout-out to Lil Jerry and the Kettle.
See, this is what I'm talking about. See, this is what I deal with, ladies, on a regular basis here, okay? I'm glad it's only once a week, because if it was anything more than that, y'all see me on TV somewhere on 11 o'clock news. But anyway, I'm going to slide on over to the right, and we have Miss Robin Hill with us today, a licensed therapist, counselor, and she's here to help us break down the psychological aspects and, you know, the deep-rooted issues, for our topic of discussion today. Robin, how are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
As always, you know, you and I go all the way back since kindergarten. You know what I'm saying? Don't tell the people what I said that. And then also we have Malakia, a fashion designer and a young professional herself. Miles, how are you?
I'm doing well. I can't complain. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yes, as always. And then lastly, we just got somebody else to join us here. This is Khalil Smith, a recent high school graduate of Cleveland Heights High School who, God willing, will be attending college in the fall. What's going on, Khalil?
What's going on? How you doing?
That's all you got to say, huh? I got on. How you doing? Yeah, okay, boy.
Hello, everybody. How y'all doing?
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, let's get started, you all. You know, we got a lot I wanted to dive into today. We all have been, dare I say, for lack of a better word or term, been privy to the most recent events surrounding the country here lately. In particular, the unfortunate, unnecessary killing of George Floyd at the hands of a few, quote-unquote, Minneapolis police officers. Now, my co-hosts, Double J, Brother Richard, and D. Gully, who's not with us today as well, have already gone over this, you know, especially since the riot and the protests and so on and so forth. We've been discussing this on the last few shows or whatnot. But I decided to, for this particular show, have you all on to provide a different perspective, all right? I'm looking for a diverse perspective about what's going on in the country today, right? So I'll put together a few notes here, and we'll give everybody a chance, of course, to speak on it. And more importantly, well, not necessarily more importantly, but what I really wanted to do, I thought I would have a few more, you know, younger people on, and there's not to take a slight towards anybody that's here right now. What I mean is the younger generation, okay? Because I talk to my children all the time about the future I envision. And people would ask me since I've been doing the podcast, well, what are you doing to contribute to the community? I said, I'm raising my children. Community starts at home. And when I raise them and give them the structure that I feel is good, the things that we all say, but a lot of people, it's only rhetoric, flowery rhetoric, integrity, morals, and scruples, and principles, and standards, and those things. I instill those in my children, and then I set them out into the world, that i.e. community, right? I wanted to get the younger generation's perspective, on what's not only going on, but where they see themselves long after we're all, the old heads, if you would, are gone, if you would, right? Okay. And I pray it's no time soon. So I want to start off with, of course, Mr. Floyd. And we all know, again, the most recent victim of yet another unnecessary case of police brutality. Ms. Hill, I'll start with you and ask, how does that make you feel?
How did what? The murder?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
On the one hand, infuriated. On the other hand, numb, because this is like every year, more than once a year we see this. I actually did watch the whole video and was just like, I can't believe what I'm seeing. And it's funny because I just read an article before we got online here about one of the police officers' lawyer, I guess was on Cuomo's show last night, saying that the bystander should have intervened. And as I watched the 9-10 minute long video, I'm watching bystanders scream and holler, and even the paramedic come trying to demand vitals on the man, and them not, shooing them away, basically threatening their safety. So we're seeing it's just a horrible display of power in these situations. And unfortunately, when you render people powerless who feel they have rights and powers, you see an uprising. And it's not the way anyone probably wanted to see the uprisings happen,
right,
but it's what happened.
Yeah.
When you render people powerless.
Would you also say maybe these officers and then officers in other cases, too many to count, it's a false sense of entitlement?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There's definitely because, you follow me on social media. I just posted an article. Like, I was just scrolling through, and the Buffalo officers who decided to take sick leave and not show up to their assignments because 2 officers were brought on charges for knocking a man down, and they're demanding respect. They're demanding everything that you hear black people say. Their police union said, you're treating us like animals. We deserve respect. Oh. There is a sense of entitlement there. There's a sense of, I have a badge, you should respect me, but there isn't a standard of professionalism expected, at least from the union. Because what you see from the different cities is you'll see the police chief say one thing, but then the union rep will say a whole nother thing. Mm-hmm. So while the police chief is trying to maintain order and deal with the public and hear their complaints, then you have the union come back and rescind basically everything and show that they have the power. So definitely there's this sense of entitlement of like they're just owed a certain respect and they have this job and you will respect them.
Yeah, I was always taught, don't ask of someone to give you something you yourself are not willing to give. You're asking for respect, but at the same time, you're showing none whatsoever. You get what I mean? It's like a contradiction, if you ask me. Malakia, I'll ask, of course, you the same thing. Because I didn't watch, I couldn't stomach watching the video in its entirety. Being a black man in this country, and 50 years old or whatnot, and having experienced racism and police, not necessarily brutality. I don't want to say that. But, my sons can attest to, being stopped by the police and not knowing if after the stop was over, we were going to still be here or not. You know what I mean? So we've experienced that. But how does the death of Mr. Floyd at the hands of these officers? How does that make you feel, Malakia?
I wasn't surprised. Seeing the video was it hit home a bit more, but just because I didn't see the video of Trayvon Martin dying, I didn't see the video of Michael Brown dying, so I wasn't at all surprised that this has happened again. I think watching the video was important to me, and even though I am African American, I'm Black. That's how I identify, and so I've experienced, and I'm a hijabi, like I'm Muslim.
Right.
So I've experienced like the look, the discrimination. I've been pulled over by a cop, like within my time in Ohio, like as well.
Mm-hmm.
So like when you're Black and like I add a hijab onto that, and you add a woman onto that, you automatically kind of like feel these kind of like things happening like all the time. But I feel like more so, it was more important for like minorities. I mean, not minorities. I'm sorry. Like white people or like non-Black, but like people of color, for them to see it so that they don't get comfortable. Because what tends to happen is that we get comfortable and complacent, like, and then we like move on, because Black lives has been mattering since like Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, like Rodney King. So I wasn't at all surprised that this happened again. Like the amount like that's happening is kind of like hitting home in like a different way in terms of like the protests, the rioting, like the looting, like the statues that's being taken down, like the policies, small, but that's being like changed, like the defunding of like the police department. Like that's kind of like making me like pay more attention. But I think that that's also because like right now, like there's more white people like on the side, or like at least like showing or trying to advocate like for like Black Lives Matter when like they weren't before. But I think that's also because like a lot of them are kind of like scared of being canceled at this point also. So to sum that up, I just think like it's, and like big brands are kind of just like they're trying to like put out like what they're trying to stand on, like Black Lives Matter or whatever, or like post a fist or like post the black square or whatever, just so like they're called out for being canceled and they don't lose business, because that's really what they care about at the end of the day, is that they're money. Not like they really give a crap about us at all. But yeah, I just would say I'm not surprised. Not at all.
Yes, very interesting take. Khalil, what do you feel? Did you watch the video of Mr. Floyd being senselessly murdered?
No, I did not watch the video. I actually couldn't. You know, as a teenager, you know, everybody's on social media and everything. So you see, you know, when something like that happens, you see it. Automatically, I had a glance at it. I already knew what it was. I couldn't watch it. I think it's disgusting that it's really people in this world that don't see you as a human being because of the color of your skin. And knowing that, I think you have to be very careful. And I think at a time like this, it's teaching everybody that, you know, now is the time to change all of this. There's no waiting. I mean, there's no holding back. We got to change how we see ourselves, you know, knowing who we are and wanting to be the best versions of ourselves. And I think once we all start to do that, hopefully, and finally the world can see that it's all one race, the human race, instead of, you know, people seeing you different because of the color of your skin.
Very well said, young fella. Very, very well said. Double J, before you respond, let me read to you something Miss Hill just posted. And I'll read the realclearpolitics.com, and the title of the article, the headline, if you would. New York Police Union head, this is what she was just speaking to. Stop treating us like animals and thugs and start treating us with, let me open it up here. Bear with me for a second. I'm using my rotary phone, y'all. Don't say nothing, Double J. Don't you say a word. Don't you say a word. I already know where you was going with this. But, yeah, New York Police Union head. Stop treating us like animals and thugs and start treating us with some respect. Right. Okay, and Ms. Hill's comment, she repeated it, stop treating us like animals and thugs and start treating us with some respect. And she put an exclamation point there like what he said. That's what we're here today to say. We've been left out of the conversation. We've been vilified. It's disgusting. I concur. I approve that message. Double J, what say you? Again, we've talked about this already, you know, you, Brother Richard, I, and Gully, but now that we're here today and we're seeing the different perspectives, what say you about the killing of Mr. Floyd?
I think this is a notable and significant town hall to have, because what we're witnessing is these individuals with different perspectives, but they really represent what I would say the pulse of the country leading in to that incident taking place, and tragedy rather. It's disappointing that after hearing everyone's opinion and as to how they approached what took place, because we've become numb to it in many respects as a society, but at the same time, you know, even since then, just in those days that have came and went, the outcry of both all communities, nationally and internationally. So this has become a global movement. I've also seen a lot of what I would consider true colors. And, you know, there's been this pivotal line in the sand that's been drawn, and it's very eye-opening to how divided the country really was. I've seen people still to this day try to discredit Mr. Floyd, which to me is really sinking to an all-time low. People really need to evaluate what their priorities are while they spend their time here on this earth to try to condemn or contradict someone that's deceased in any respect. But I'm grateful to share the stage here and continue to hear what everyone else thinks we can do moving forward.
Yeah, me too, man. This is very interesting. Again, I'm gonna say thank you to Malakia, Miss Hill, and Khalil, because this is what my aim was when putting the information together for this show today. You all have definitely provided so far a definite different perspective, and that is sorely needed. So let us continue. I want to read to you all something. A good friend of mine, a colleague, and Miss Hill, you may know him, Frank Wiley from Channel 5, News Channel 5 here in Cleveland. He and I, you know, we share a lot of the same ideologies, if you would, and the post or whatnot. And he put up something not too long ago, before you put yours up, about, Martin Luther King. He put up the words of what Martin Luther King said. And I want to read that to you all. Now, this wasn't already, you know, I didn't already have this in my notes, but it just came out, so I'm going to read it. And it says, or Martin Luther King says, excuse me, we are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. Procrastination is still the thief of time. Life often leaves us standing bare, naked and dejected with a lost opportunity. This may well be mankind's last chance to choose between chaos or community. Ms. Hill, your thoughts?
When you're talking about that procrastination, it makes me think about Colin Kaepernick and his silent protest that he started, and how everyone just blew it off, and he's just grandstanding because he's not a good player, or he's disrespecting the flag. That no one took the time to listen. I saw a picture of a protester of a white lady with a cardboard that said, "I am so sorry, I didn't listen before, but I hear you now." And that's how I feel like the whole country is right now, as it is burning all over. I mean, literally, the country was set on fire because no one would listen. And Martin Luther King also said, riots is the language of the unheard. Had people given the respect to listen, and not pacify or laugh it off or devalue what was being said, we probably wouldn't be in this situation now where it seems like they're scrambling to come up with a solution to calm everyone down. And I'm not saying that the anger isn't righteous. I'm just saying that when there was time to have a civil conversation, it was what's
dismissed
the word?
Or ignored.
Dismissed, yeah. Yes, and belittled in value. Like
right.
It was, what was my counselor word? I have a counselor word for this, but I can't think of it right now.
That's okay.
But yeah, that is
that's okay.
That is what the problem is.
Yeah, I'm with you on that all day, every day. Mal, Miss Malakia, should I say, your thoughts as well on the words of Martin Luther King?
I would just have to agree with Ms. Hill on this one, like, and what you said about like procrastination. That for so long, like even as I said before, like Black lives have been mattering. Like we've been trying to like say something and make our voices heard. And maybe I'm a bit of like a pessimist, but I was like recently having a conversation with my best friend who was like white, and she's white. She like benefits from white privilege. So for the sake of this, she's white. And she was saying that she was like hoping to like see some real change, or like hoping to like that things are finally going to like change or whatnot. And I didn't know how to tell her, but I ended up telling her that this is just, it's almost as if they're like giving us a handout with like painting like the Black Lives Matter in front of the White House and like changing like the street sign. It's like they're giving us something to pacify us for like the moment, something like a pacifier basically, just to get us to be quiet. Because I don't feel like we're actually going to see some real change until like maybe a couple generations have died off. Just from my perspective, because I feel like racism and like the evilness within racism, it gets passed down to generation and generation. And I know there's racism in my generation. I'm 25. I know there's racism in my little sister's generation. She's 17, and even like my one who's like 15. So I can just like imagine like, so it's like implanted, it's passed down. So I don't think like there will be any like real change like seen maybe until like kids who are maybe like 5 or 4, like maybe they'll grow up to see like some real change right now. But like I'm a bit of a pessimist in terms of that.
No. Well, me personally, there's part of me that feels the same way, because my grandfather sat me down when I was a kid, and I asked myself, after I look at the events unfolding here or whatnot, and again the things that I've seen in my lifetime since I understood left from right and right from wrong and so on and so forth, why am I seeing some of the same things that he saw? And he was 80.
Exactly.
You understand what I'm saying? So and this yarn about we the people and so on and so forth. The actions are belying the words. To me, okay. So, and I want to throw this out here at you all too, Khalil and Double J. I'll come to you in a minute, because Malakia brings up an interesting point. She says she doesn't really think it's going to be any change, and that's honest, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's what we do here. That's what this shop is all about. But I ask this question constantly. I'm in conversation with people I work with, and I try to talk to them about life. And I mean, to each his own, but their priorities, and if you ask me, they kind of bass backward, because I want to talk about the things. My thing is about mind. It's about mind evolution. Okay. My grandfather used to tell me, in life, you look at your life like the days of a week, Monday through Sunday. He said, when you get to Wednesday, you have to step back and reflect. You have to look at Monday and Tuesday, and you have to be honest with yourself. And you got to say, on Wednesday, if you're no better today, that day, than you were Monday and Tuesday, then you don't even think about Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday until you fix what's going. You understand? In other words, if you ain't no better Sunday than you was Monday, then what? I mean, hey, I feel We need to educate ourselves. If I want to understand what it is that I'm about to do or who it is I'm dealing with, I need to learn you. Learn how you think, learn how you move, learn how you act. This is why they say chess is the game of life. Okay? I've recommended 3 books to people because you know me, Ms. Hill. You know, I'm always in some kind of sports debate with somebody, right? And they say, where are you getting all your information from? Because I have books upon books upon books upon books that I use as a resource. I've recommended 3 books to people. It's not that I'm better than or less than, but I'm trying to elevate you, man. The Art of War, As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, and Brainwashed by Tom Burrell. Nobody has picked up near one of these books. But hey, like Mos Def said, kids can't spell, but they can rock you on PlayStation. But if they want to talk about hip hop wives and what happened on TV, it's, oh they know that tooth. They know that too. I'm not against entertainment. I'm not. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not against having fun and all that kind of stuff. But at some point, you got to try to figure out what your purpose in this world is. We have to read. If we educate ourselves, then and only then, in my opinion or estimation, once we figure out what we're dealing with and who we're dealing with, then we'll understand how to deal with it. And to me, that can then bring about or this be the start of some serious change or something different.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, go ahead. In this country.
So I like the idea of, like, once we know what we're dealing with, we know how to deal with it. Just how do we combat that with people who don't want to let go of power? Because we can read and we can educate ourselves, but they truly don't want change. Because if they did, they would have rewritten the Constitution like so long ago.
Of course.
They would have like reconstructed the justice system so long ago.
Of course.
And like it's a game of chess where they are like 400 years, like those like 3 steps ahead. They're like 400 plus years like ahead of like us in this game of chess or life.
Yes.
So how are we supposed to combat that?
Okay, I'll give you
trying to like educate ourselves.
I'll give you my answer, and if Ms. Hill, if you want to, if you want to respond to that as well, please do. Double J, Khalil, I'm not forgetting you all, so just bear with me. But let me give you an example. I know a guy, and I'm not really trying to put his business out here like that, so I won't mention any names or any really details or whatnot. But let me give you an example. I know a guy who was sentenced for rape and kidnapping. He got 18 years. It was his sentence. What he did when they incarcerated him, because he did not do what they said he had done. I got background noise. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. He did not do what they said he did. Now, I don't know. I didn't know him. You don't know when somebody doing when they're not around you or whatnot. But I was around him enough to know his character to some degree, because that's my grandfather was always. He's like, he said, I'm not going to teach you how to deal with color first. He said, it's unfortunate in this world that you have to. He said, but I'm going to teach you how to be. I want you to understand character first. Then when you come with character, the person on the other end, they're going to show you whether or not if they got the character or if they're going to come with color, and I'll show you then how to deal with that as well. So his character was such, I was like, oh, no. But again, you don't know, right? But I would just refuse to believe it because I had been around his character long enough that I would put my stamp on it. So he's in for about a year. But let me tell you what he did. Now, I forget what it's called, Miss Hill. You might know. But when a person goes to court and they get a case and they get convicted or whatever it is, what is it called? The deposition or the court case, the document, whatever it is. He got his paperwork. Say that again.
I said, I'm not sure which one you're looking for.
Okay, yeah. But anyway, all of the paperwork that goes, affidavit, whatever they call it, that goes with your case. He had it sent to him. Mm-hmm. He went to the library in the prison, and he broke his case down, word by word, by page by page by page by page by page. I mean, and it took him a good year. He is out right now to this day, and he runs his own business. He used this. That's what I mean when I say educate. A lot of guys, we seen the first 48. We fall victim to the system or whatnot because we conditioned. And most of y'all might not be familiar. Well, everybody here might be familiar with Ivan Pavlov, the Pavlovian theory, and the classical conditioning, and so on and so forth. You have to recondition yourself. When you convey yourself well, when you carry yourself a certain way, there's nobody on this earth that cannot give you the respect that you deserve. When they say that the pen is mightier than the sword, no truer words were spoken. See, I tell people at work all the time, I love expressions and breaking down expressions and asking people if they're true or false or not. I treat people the way I want to be treated. True or false? They say, yeah, heck yeah. No, I treat people the way I expect to be treated. See, want and expect. Them two words, put them in, take them out, they change the whole connotation of the expression. Because I know, and I'm not saying by any means I'm perfect or no nothing like that, but I know when I come to you, I'm coming to you with respect. In Islam, they call it adab, standards, principles, all those things, because I cherish and value is really what it is, values. So when you show me something different, well, then guess what? But I digress. Ms. Hill, would you like to respond to Malachia's question? And then Double J, we'll come to you next as well.
I would say I think we're at an interesting turning point. If you pay attention to the riots, not the riots, but the protests, you will see that it's generally the young people that's leading that. Us old people got tired. Our feet got tired, 7 days ago. So I think that we're in an interesting place right now where you see how many followers the young people can bring in to make change. I mean, when I saw the march in Philadelphia and it went on, I mean, it was like they had to do an aerial view of how many people were there. There is enough people behind your generation to bring about change, to vote out the people who need to get up out of there and vote in some new people. I don't like how both parties have decided that they're going one last hurrah with these old white men. They both, to me, are really, even when it came to Bernie Sanders, it's really, really old men. They come from a different time and a different mindset. Even no matter how progressive their policy or their, not even policy, their campaigning may sound, they all come from a time period where certain things were okay. So I think right now, with what has happened, everything has shifted, and it is time to move with this shift. I think Danita Harris put a post up. What did her post say? If you don't shift when the shift is happening, your engine's going to break.
Right.
So it
right.
is a shift happening. It is a shift happening right now, and we have to move with it because the light bulb is turned on. I mean, when you run the president into a bunker, he's scared out of his mind. He thought he was going to call in the troops. He said MAGA should come meet the protesters at the gate. He thought he was calling his troops in to fight for him, and no one showed up, and then he ran into the bunker. Things have shifted. Thought he had a certain power, a certain pool, but it doesn't exist.
Yeah. And you know what? Let me add. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish. I'm sorry.
No, I just said, what were you going to say?
Yeah, let me add something on the end of that. And when you talk about voting, a lot of people put their focus on the primary elections, right? But you know how many people I talk to that have no clue and this is again another expression. Ignorance is not bliss, but that's just my opinion. But anyway, it's a story for another day. I asked them about the secondary elections, and I even asked them about their council people and the people who go over their wards and so on and so forth. They don't. I don't know. This is what I mean. You have to educate yourself on the issues and who's standing for what and who's out front saying, vote for me for this or vote for me for that. And you have to understand the people and the politics in place at the lower levels too, because at the end of the day, and again, this is just my opinion, politicians, period, are people who can tell you to go to hell in such a manner that you actually look forward to the trip. They are the masters of flowery rhetoric. I'm not buying nothing y'all selling. Give me a book. I will read up on how y'all roll. Then I'll know who to go to and mark my checkbox at the poll. You get what I'm saying? Double J.
You know what? And
go ahead.
Oh,
go ahead, Miss Hill.
I was just going to add that people weren't paying attention when the whole coronavirus shutdown happened. Trump talked like he had power, and the governors had to let him know you don't have that power.
Right.
We have to learn how this government system works.
Yes.
We don't understand where the power lies and who has what power and how to make change, because we think it all comes from the White House, and that is not the truth.
It's not.
But
No, it's not. Double J, you want me to read that again, what Martin Luther King's words?
Yeah, I'm sorry?
You want me to read that again, Martin Luther King's words?
Yeah, by all means.
Okay. This is from, Mr. Frank Wiley, and Martin Luther King's words are, we are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. Procrastination is still the thief of time. Life often leaves us standing bare, naked and dejected with a lost opportunity. This may well be mankind's last chance to choose between chaos or community. Your thoughts, Double J?
Well, I think Dr. King is always, dare I say, he's the plug on the silver lining. And what to answer the young lady's question earlier about, well, how can this change? She brought up a very, very valid point, and why she believed it nothing, in her opinion, would change. And the reason why is what's known as systemic racism. And so you can't put your finger on one thing like police brutality as an example and saying, well, if we reform the police departments or defund them, et cetera, that means everything changes and we're good to go. Unfortunately, that's not the case, because if you go back to the time when Dr. King was around and just shortly after when the Civil Rights Acts were passed, unfortunately, you had, as Brother Rich and I have pointed out on other programs, there's a huge disparity from everything from the finance side, with banks not approving minorities for loans. Right now, this wealth gap, for every $100 that is held by a white or Caucasian family, the African American equivalent is $5.50 here in 2020. So I want people to really let that sink in. And when it comes to the politics, as you pointed out, that everyone assumes it's, okay, I'm going to vote at the primary election. That's not where change happens. And if you look at, as Sean King had pointed out, where the cases of police brutality are taking place the most, they are all democratically ran cities. So it is time to do a deeper, these conversations like we're having today have to happen, but they have to keep happening.
Right.
This isn't something that now that the ball is rolling, you have to make sure that it's rolling downhill so it continues to gain that momentum.
Right.
And being educated about who you're voting for, but it's beyond that. We have to, again, these banks and finance organizations have been bailed out more than once. I do want to point that out. And there is absolutely zero reason why they should not be approving minorities that they would actually be deemed. They gave more loans to Caucasian Americans that were lower class than they did to medium and to middle and high class African American. Let that stuff sink in, because if you want to know where the change happens, it starts with education. And guess what? If you're stuck in a situation, in a system that is designed for you to fail, nothing is going to change.
And Double J.
So if for those, moving forward, we got to continue to put pressure on this movement to enforce change across the board.
Exactly.
Yes, that's you, man. You so on point with that, and I'm glad you said something that just brought another thought to my mind. Let me get this out right quick, y'all, because Miss Robin, you just don't know. I'll be having senior moments. I'm telling you, it's bad. But anyway, when we talk about education, not you or I. When I say we, I'm just generalizing. Okay, I'm not being specific. We have been conditioned to think that the only way to get an education is to go to the high school or to go to, in my case, Ohio University and so on and so forth. Yes, those are learning institutions. But you have to simply read. You can go to a library. Malcolm X did not go to Nare University and was one of the most learned men to ever walk this earth. Education means to simply read. You have to read those things that are, like I tell my children all the time. Get those things and you ask yourself, will this make my life any better? Will this make me a better person? It's about betterment, not detriment. You read anything and everything you can get your hands on that might help you to navigate this world that you live in and amongst the chaos and so on and so forth. That's why I'm recommending The Art of War. I'm telling you, it's one of the coldest books ever written. We don't read. We have been conditioned to think that the only way to be educated is if we go to the university. No. Educate yourself. Look beyond the manifest and go hit that latent. See? We caught up on what's in front of us. Don't pull up on me in the nice car that look fast, because I'm not one of them people who's going to be impressed by what it looked like or appearances. See? Or judge a book by its cover. We all know the story, adages or so on and so forth, right? The expressions or whatnot. I'm going to ask you to open the hood. We got to dive deep into this thing. And Miss Hill, you mentioned the shift. Hey, we all know what happened when the avalanche happened, right? Once it starts, you can't stop it. And why is that? Because there are laws of nature that have been broken. The universe has to right itself. And that's what's happening, in my opinion. That's what's taking place. Khalil, you still with us?
Yes, sir.
All right, sounds good, son. I'm going to need you to be a little more responsive. I'm going to need you to be quicker than that, like the State Farm guy. Oh, you got to be quicker than that. Oh. In your estimation, procrastination is what? Now that you're a senior in high school, as opposed to maybe when you were a freshman or in middle school or whatnot, and you understand procrastination. We've had this conversation on many occasions, right?
Plenty of times.
Plenty of times. What's one of my favorite lines to you and your brothers and sister? About
do what
time.
You got to do so you can do what you want to do.
About time. Be a half hour early instead of a minute late, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So from your vantage point, when we talk about procrastination, what do you see now that you didn't see when you were a little bit younger? And and when your response, you don't have to try to be politically correct or nothing. Say what you feel, just as long as you don't use no profanity. Because, I still got a belt over here. You know that, right? Okay. Go ahead.
I didn't see all the protests. I didn't see buildings being put on fire. I didn't see the whole world coming together. I didn't see people talking about what's going on. It's like you just live, as a kid, you just having fun, having no worries really. But as you get older, you understand that, well, for me, a black man in this country, it's a lot of people that see your skin as a weapon or dangerous. And I think as I got older, I started to understand that. I didn't really grasp it then. I'm like, what you talking about? I'm a kid. But as I got older, I've learned that, it's serious out here as a black man and black woman in this country especially.
Interesting. People of color in general. Double J, I'm gonna touch back on something you said a little bit ago too about the because we're gonna actually that's gonna be one of the next things I ask everybody. We talk about the systemic deal, right? Systemic is not just in the race, the police and so on and so forth. What we're talking about here today is the sentencing laws, the disparity in those. You know what I mean? Systemic is all the way across the board. You feel what I'm trying to tell you? There are other ways than just the ones that we see constantly being portrayed on the TV screen. And let me tell you, I'm so grateful to be a journalism major. And again, I'm not saying that because I'm better than. I'm still learning. You seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave, okay? But I'm so glad to be a journalism major because my professors made it a point. And Miss Hill, and you know this, Double J, you went to Purdue, Malachi, I know you know this, and Khalil, you know this as well coming up in high school in your AVID courses or whatnot. And the gist of it, so to speak, is my professors, when I had to do my final paper, right, and whatever, I forget the journalism class it was, and the professor specifically let everybody in the class know, he said, listen, if I start reading your paper and I see that you've pulled from sources like Time Magazine or one of those or something, I'm ripping it up. I want you to gather information. Again, I want you to go really gather the information. We don't substitute real reality with television reality. That's a big problem in this country. And when I say television, TELL-A-vision. George Orwell, another great book, 1984. And the premise, people are like happy, cheerful robots. We have to start thinking for ourselves. When we start thinking for ourselves, here come that avalanche. Watch what I tell you. That avalanche is coming, baby. All right. I'd like to now read a quote to you all, or a statement, that I actually saw on Facebook. And the only reason I'm still on it for two, I do a sports talk show, so I stay abreast of what's going on. And every now and again, like when Miss Hill may post something, I feel like it's pertinent, to what I'm trying to do going forward and such and so on and so forth. But for the most part, if it wasn't for stuff like that, believe me, as I said before, Double J, I wouldn't be on it. But I saw a post, and I put this as part of the information here today because I found it rather interesting. It says looting, and I'm speaking ebonically here, looting ain't part of protesting, but murder ain't part of arresting. Double J, what do you make of this statement?
Well, it's the unfortunate reality where a lot of our neighbors throughout the country have unfortunately titled property being valued more than life. And because of that, once again, there's an additional hoop to jump through to get them to see with a clear-eyed view. And that is, again, simply put, that is a counter based on, we're not going to support you if you're going to burn things down. Which again, ultimately here, it's disturbing that statement, that message needs to be even said.
Yeah, I'm with you on that all day. Malakil, we'll come to you as well. What do you make of the statement? Do you want me to read it again?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I think there's I think there's so many different perspectives on this as far as like the looting goes. Like people have so many different like conflicting feelings. I do agree that like Black lives over materialistic things, over things. They're just things. And people are tired and they're fed up. They did the peaceful protest and it's gotten us really nowhere. At the same time, and then there are conspiracies that like go along with this, is that like we're like looting our own neighborhoods. However, it's been like footage that like cops are planting like the bricks and stuff like that. And then there are the white protesters that are actually inciting the violence, and even like the whole Antifa group that are like being paid to like incite the violence. And then there's a conspiracy that the whole like looting of like Black neighborhoods just makes gentrification that much easier, because Black owned businesses and Black neighborhoods may not have the means to rebuild. So then it gets bought out and gentrification starts. And that's kind of like what they wanted. So overall, I feel like Black lives over things, over just materialistic items.
Interesting. I'm loving all the responses on this program today. Double J, this might be the best one we done did yet, man, to tell you the truth. I'm loving this. Miss Hill, same to you. What do you make of the statement, looting ain't part of protesting, but murder ain't part of arresting?
Murder should never be a part of arrest. They're becoming the judge and jury before they even get arrested when they kill someone without even giving them their day in court. So that is never. We're talking about occupational negligence versus what's happening in a society. When it comes to the looting, this is the part that no one wants to really hear. Historically, when change happens, it was never just a march across the bridge that brought about the Civil Rights Act from before. There was legislation being pushed, there was marches, there was boycotts, and there were riots. And so what we're seeing now, government officials have been preparing for quite some time. It's, when you're looking at it as a playbook, they got the playbook then and have tried their best to prevent anything of that nature happening widespread again. So you saw them burn up the Huff area in the 70s. Was it the 70s, 60s?
Yeah,
70s?
I think it was the 60s. Late 60s. Yeah, Huff riots.
So as my mom was telling me on the phone the other day about, and I could hear the agitation in her voice. I didn't understand why she was so agitated. But then she says, it reminds me of being a little girl hearing the tanks ride up and down the street. Another lady commented on my post when I brought it up. And I said, check on our elders because they're having trauma reactions. And the one lady said, yes, there was smoke all in the street. People were just being shot down and killed. So they conditioned, as you were talking about the Pavlov's dog, they conditioned a prior generation to not fight anymore. And here they raised another generation, and now the grandchildren are like, I'm ready to fight. And you got the grandparents saying, don't you go out there. So when Tamir Rice got killed, no one got upset. Those children, the young adults of today were children then.
Yeah.
Now Tamir Rice got killed, and when Melissa, and I can't remember those guys' name, when they got shot up, no one tore up the city. And I sat there and I said, why is Cleveland being so docile? But then now I understand the historical perspective. They're traumatized. So now we have a young generation that has no connection, and they ain't listen to grandma anymore. They tearing it up. And now, as much as everyone says riot proved nothing, they arrested those officers when they originally said it's going to take us about 2 months to bring charges on one. Within a couple of days, they had them all four in jail. Yeah. And we say rioting brings no change, but the officers in Buffalo lost their jobs and were brought up on charges. We got Ahmaud Arbery's trial going on right now, and they are going by the book. So, because everyone's afraid. They want us to just march, have a demonstration, and go home so they can go on back to business as usual.
Right.
But the young people, they steadily are marching. They steadily are out there. So much so the president had to create an unmarked army to come in and help him feel safe in D.C. So, this is what rioting, when they say it doesn't do anything, yes, it does, but not alone. At the same time that they're angry in the streets, there are people pushing legislation right now.
Yeah. And petitions as
so,
well.
And petitions, and we're talking about voting people out of office. So everything has a part to play in the whole process. But let history tell you, the way they try to rewrite it, Dr. King's I Had a Dream, they marched on Washington, and that was it. That's how you bring about change. You just be peaceful, and you and no one quotes any of other Dr. King's speeches. They only quote the I Have a Dream.
Yeah, of course.
They don't quote anything else.
Right. And I'm glad you brought up the young people, Ms. Hill. And Khalil, this is for you. Mr. Frank Wiley did another piece on what he called, or was titled, Generation Z. And I'll read it here to you. The headline here is, Generation Z, not letting age hold them back. Generation Z is protesting, fighting racial injustice. And I'm just going to read a few pieces here, because the young man that this highlighted in this article went to Cleveland Heights. He's a football player at West Liberty University right now, but he went to Cleveland Heights, okay? And the article says, and this article is actually by Amanda Van Allen from News Channel 5, but Frank is the one who posted it, I believe. They may be young, but they're mighty. Generation Z is protesting across the country and close to home. It's time to step up. It's time to make sure that y'all know we're not backing down anymore. We're tired of it, said Brendan Nichols. Do you know him, Khalil, Brendan Nichols?
No, I don't, but the name sounds familiar.
Okay. Nichols is a 23-year-old rising senior and football player at West Liberty University. He was at Tuesday's protest in Cleveland and lives in Cleveland Heights when he's not on campus. And here's what he said. I am a big black man, and that's as simple as I can put it. I know there's a target on my back, said Nichols. Nichols said he's fighting for his dreams of one day being drafted into the NFL, a dream he fears could be silenced with a simple traffic stop. They could be having a bad day and pull me over and everything could go left, he said. Corey C. Miller, an associate professor at Wright State University in Dayton, said Generation Z is feeling the impact of issues our society is facing. This generation feels relatively disenfranchised by the current systems that are in place. C. Miller has been studying Generation Z for years, a group that includes everyone from fourth graders to 25-year-olds. There's a sense of frustration that's been building with this generation. And this idea of working within the system to try to make changes, lobbying legislators that are 50 years older, as Ms. Hill pointed out, than them is not working, said C. Miller. These young people, which are part of the most diverse generation ever, are finding ways to work outside of the current systems to seek change. Not only do they have the fervor, or the energy, the enthusiasm, the excitement, the persistence, and the wherewithal to want to make a difference, they also have the tools and the technology that are going to leverage their ability to do so in ways like we've never seen in any generation. Although Gen Z is pretty independent, Nichols said they are open to advice from other generations. We listen more than you think we listen, but not enough. So just talk to us, said Nichols. We'll take in what we take in, and if it makes sense with what's going on in the world, we're going to listen. I thought that's a young person talking. So to your point, Ms. Hill, and you too, Khalil, as a young person, aren't you tired of it? Aren't you tired of it, Khalil?
Yeah. I think our generation, I think the most special thing about our generation is, we may joke around, play with each other a lot, whatever. But when it comes down to it, we're there for each other always. I think we don't have a fear factor, and that's the most special thing. When you hear your grandparents talking about how 50, 60 years ago, they were marching with King and they saying it looks like the same now as it did back then. I think our generation is saying, you know what, bump that. You know what I'm saying? We've been peaceful. That's not working. We tried to get, people to understand where we're coming from. All we want is equality and stuff like that. But now that, people are not listening, I think, that's when the looting and the burning buildings and stuff that's what happens. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with tearing up things, but I understand it. I think when you don't listen, you don't hear people out, I think that's the only way you can get people to listen. Acting violent, not hurt people, but, you hurt, what people value the most in this world, which is property. And I think it's also disgusting. But like I was saying, I love our generation because we don't have a fear factor. I think our mentality is if we're going to go out, we're going to go out fighting for what we believe in. And I think that's a powerful thing.
Well, I'll tell you what, in the words of Pastor Vernon John, I know people get tired of hearing me say this, but if y'all stop doing the stuff y'all doing, then I'll stop saying the stuff I'm saying. And Pastor Vernon John, by the way, was pastor of the Great Abyssinian Baptist Church, of course, Martin Luther King as well, but the pastor before Martin Luther King. And he said, and when I read these words, I had to marinate on them for 25 years. Okay, I'm embellishing, 23 and a half years. But you get the point. If a man is not willing to die for what he believes in, then he is not fit to live. Okay? Let that marinate. And then ask yourself, what you out here dying for? Because you could believe in some dumb stuff and be out here dying. You know what I mean? Like, unfortunately, some stuff I see going on in other neighborhoods, and we out here killing each other over cool points. I ain't cool with that either. But if that belief is something to the, that would lend itself or lead towards the betterment for mankind, are you willing to? And that's rhetorical. Are you willing to? I can't. Hey, when I read it, I'm telling you, I was stuck for a minute. I was like, ooh wee. I had to. I mean, do you really have to want to even really have to deal with that? Answer that? I don't know about that. All right. Moving on. I want to read to you all another post that I thought was pretty poignant, if I can use that word here. Or apropos. I like that better. Letting a demonstration be judged by its most violent participants, but not judging a police force by its most violent cops is the language of the oppressor. Malakia, your thoughts?
You said,
okay. Oh, wait, did you say Miss Hill? Or
No. I said Malakia. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry. Can you read it out one more time?
Letting a demonstration be judged by its most violent participants, but not judging a police force by its most violent cops is the language of the oppressor.
I mean, this is America, basically. And I said it before, like, there's not going to be any change until, like, the whole Constitution gets rewritten, the justice system is reconstructed. And as was mentioned before, there's systemic racism in place that plays, like, a larger part. So, yeah, this is America, basically.
Double J. You want me to read that again, or you want to give your thoughts?
No, I heard it, and it's a sad reality because, again, if you were to read that, you would be able to guess exactly who it came from. No different than countless other quotes or comments that you would be littered all across social media platforms. And as we've really pointed out throughout the program
this evening is that there's a lot of things that have to, begin to change, and it doesn't start, and better yet, doesn't stop at just protesting. The difficult part at this stage of the game is being able to identify where to begin, because as the young lady just pointed out, she wants to see change within the Constitution, and we've explained the disconnect between who's in power, or who holds positions of power there in the age gap. Not only with what their tolerances are, but more so their actual connection to, almost as many say, I keep an ear to the ground to understand what's happening. These folks are in the 1%. How,
Yeah.
How could you possibly relate to, everyone else? You can't. You can attempt to, but truthfully, you can't. So we have to be willing to change, because it is we, the people. That will always be where the power, the true power, is held. Because again, that you could be an owner of a company, but if you have no workforce, you're not going to get very far. And same could be said for the leader of the free world. If you have no armed forces or people willing to fight for you, as you saw, you end up in a bunker. So
yeah,
that's where I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, it's all good. I like that. That was nice, Double J. Miss Hill, your thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
You want me to read that again?
So I'm sitting here thinking about No, I got it. And I'm sitting here thinking about it, and how do I want to say this without taking up an hour? But when you're looking at the thought processes that gear that push that, you're looking at the root of racism now. So where did this ideology that when you see black people, you see the worst of what's happening, and when you see other people, you don't. And you go back to the very first movie, Birth of a Nation, not the redone one, but the very first one that ingrained in white people that black men were out here to hurt their women.
Can you hold that thought? Can you hold that thought? Just please don't lose your thought. You mentioned Birth of a Nation.
Mm-hmm.
I took an African American studies class in college, and the subject was blacks in films and television. The author of the book that we used for that course, Donald Bogle, wrote this book, and the title, Toms, Coons, Mulattoes, Mammies, and Bucks. I challenge anybody to go out there and read that book. It will give you the proper perspective, as Miss Hill just mentioned, when it comes to movies like The Birth of a Nation, the original version, and how we are depicted from then until now. Go ahead with your thought. Finish your thought, Miss Hill. I'm sorry.
And that is part of the root. The other part of the root is Darwin. Everybody wants to praise Darwin for this theory of evolution, but no one knows that the root of the theory of evolution is to show that people of African origin were genetically inferior. So using science and then using media to create this ongoing persona of black people as these dangerous, scary people, or the women are these jungle bunny sexual objects. And that has been passed on for decade after decade after decade after decade. And so here we come today, and we're like, why can't you see what's wrong with this situation? And then you have the woman in the Central Park who says, I'm going to call the police. She invokes the system of racism because, of course, everyone's going to believe this white lady screaming help over this black man who's there to watch birds.
Yeah.
And
I wish somebody would.
It's not a political party. It's a human condition.
Yes, I'm sorry, and I need you to repeat that. But I just want to say right quick, I'm surprised that nobody called PETA. She was choking the dog.
Oh, she got a dog taken before they even said anything about the man. They came and got her dog like within the day.
What? Go ahead, finish.
That went viral, yes, because she had adopted her dog. So the kennel came and took the dog back from her. But they still have not put any charges for her calling the police on him. And everyone's thinking, well, she's a MAGA supporter, and it's not a political thing. It's a human thing because they looked at her giving record, and she's extremely liberal.
Yes.
She supported every liberal campaign in that she could. So we have to recognize that this is something that's been ingrained in America. It's in our psyche. And we can legislate all we can, but what are we going to do to deal with the psychological whatever you want to call it, that people have, the psychological filter, mental filters, because that's the same mental filter that made the police officer shoot that one black social worker who was walking in the streets with his autistic kid who had to lay down in the street saying, please don't shoot, because he wanted to save the autistic kid and wound up getting shot. It's the same mental filter that got Philando Castile shot. The man says, I don't know why I shot. I don't know. What is in the mental filter that makes you think that this is a dangerous situation as soon as you speak to a black man or a black woman?
I'm telling you, I think it's deep-rooted, too. And you know what? I don't knock anybody's party affiliation. Me, myself, I'm an independent, okay? Because like you said, excuse my French fries, but to hell with party affiliation. It's about people and the ingrained stuff for years and centuries that's set in like concrete. See what I'm saying? You got to get to the root of it. Republican, Democrat, that ain't the root of it. Everybody run around here telling me, and you need to do this. I get what we all need to do, man. But listen, y'all better get some shovels and start digging. Get some shovels and start digging, because this thing is deep. That's what I'm trying. You have to roll your sleeves up, baby, to get to find out how we gonna really deal with this action. Man, listen, something is happening. Something is happening. I've been around long enough. You understand? Is that Malakia?
Can I?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, present a perspective. Can we also say that it is a human condition, but it is connected to politics? That there is a connection, like it's not just coincidence that most conservative Republicans are also racist or Trump supporters or MAGAs or whatever that party like stands for. And I'm not saying Democrats are like any better in like their views or whatnot, because I believe they have their issues as well. I just don't think it's a coincidence that like racists or people who have that conditioning are also the people in power. And so when I say things like, let's like reconstruct or like rewrite the Constitution, like I feel like that is a starting point that trickles down. But then there also is like, okay, well, who would be the one to rewrite the Constitution? Probably some old white guy, which is like a whole nother point. And just to also say that when it says like we the people, it also wasn't talking about black people. It was talking about white people who owned property. So it wasn't inclusive to us at all. No,
it was not. Not at all. I think the two are definitely connected. It's like the cart, but one, you have to, I want to understand the people. When I understand the people, then I can address the politics. It's like the cart before the horse type of deal. You get what I'm saying? You can't have one without the other. Okay? It's the car, but the car, as great as it is, it don't go nowhere without the keys. And vice versa. You know what I'm saying? You can have the keys, but if you ain't got the car, where you going? You see what I'm trying to tell you? I think that they definitely, there's a correlation, or they're synonymous or connected, or however you parallel, however you want to put that. Yeah, but you can't, you got to have one, but looks, it's the, like Miss Hill just said too, for that lady in that video, the first reaction, not saying from anybody here on the panel, but the first reaction was to say, oh, she's, a Trump supporter or whatever, and she's a liberal. See what I mean? So got to put the brakes on that one. You see what I'm saying? So now I'm like, well, wait a minute. Go ahead. What were you saying?
She was a liberal. So was the barbecue lady, the one who called the cops on the people having a cookout. She was liberal, and I think what we see now, ever since Obama was elected, that drew the line in the sand that a lot of people switched to Republican, because before that, it's always been nothing but, old white man presidents. So racists were probably on both sides up until Obama. Then people who became infuriated that this black man could actually be a president jumped to another side. But I think that we do have to recognize that there are some hiding in both parties. Bill Clinton pushing that prison reform, that he was Democrat, so we have to, up until now, like we are in a prime time right now because they're actually listening. You got the Democrats in there kneeling with kente cloth like that was supposed to do something. Because everyone's trying to, okay, we hear you and we want to advocate for you. You got the Republicans throwing out cash in Cleveland, thinking that they can just buy the black vote. Like, here, we'll just say, give them some money and have a big old lottery. You see that we are in a prime position now to make demands. And I would say we need to make demands of both parties because the Democrats will pacify us as well.
Absolutely. I want to say, go ahead, this is Malakia.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I agree with that, and I think like that's one way to combat it on like the political side. And the human conditioning side, I just like was thinking, well, what if it is white supremacy that we are fighting globally? Because in America, like, it's a thing, and it turns into a big, like, political argument between the Democrats and Republicans and whatnot. But it's just because that's, like, how America was founded, on the graves of Native Americans, on the backs of African Americans, and then democracy and capitalism. However, they have also managed to spread, like, white supremacy, like, globally, and anti-blackness globally. So it's not just something we're fighting here, like, on the homeland, like America, but it's also in like in Africa, we have like this whole problem where like it's a thing where they don't mess with African Americans, or in Asia there's colorism, and even in Britain, like there's like problems. Like there's a story about, I'm gonna mispronounce her name, Sakori, like she was a black Muslim young girl whose case basically they didn't look into after she was like bullied. She was like a refugee and she was like bullied in school and whatnot, and they didn't look into her case at all. And so now people are like petitioning to like reopen her case. So I think as far as human conditioning goes, it's going to take like a lot of white people to stop discussing like what we're doing with like what they're doing to black bodies and like the conditioning of it. Because I think by this point, like we all like get it. We see the system. Even when they try to deny it, they see it. They see what they've done to us and they see what's happening. I think they have to start arguing, well, like what, or like questioning, like what is it within us that makes us feel like we're superior? Like what kind of sickness is within us that like makes us think we're like supreme, like this whole idea of white supremacy. So, and there's actually a video on that, like going around like on Instagram or whatnot. It's really informative. So I think that's the conversation that we have to push to white people, that they need to be having within themselves, within their homes and their families and their dining rooms and whatnot. Because like you said, like everything does play a part in this, and everyone has their role to play. And I think like just as like these people are like protesting and they're posting on social media, they also need to continue that work at home.
And no question. Yeah, that's I'm telling you, that's for me, that's where it starts. That's where it starts at the house.
Yeah.
My kids will definitely tell you. But I'm glad, I'm proud of all of them, because we mold and we shape as adults, and I've told them all the time, it's not just my sons, my daughters as well. I want to see a better me through my children's eyes. You get what I'm saying? And then that hopefully will continue when they get older and they have children, and so on and so forth. So, who's to say? But, at the end of the day, I'm just glad we all were able to come here today, to have this discussion. Double J, I'm glad you weighed in, man. As always, what you say, except for when it comes to that Jerry Jones talk and Dallas Cowboy kettlebell and all of that. Ladies, I'm not going to even bring y'all into that nonsense shenanigans.
I wouldn't know what y'all talking about.
Seriously, I wouldn't.
Yeah. What'd you say, Double J? What'd you say?
Well, our guest here being a therapist, as you see, he's in denial.
Oh.
He's denounced the Cleveland Browns. I mean, there's a lot of things here. I'm unfortunately, I'm not qualified. But I'm sure you could have a nice sit down with him and get to the bottom of it.
Miss Hill, didn't you just say something about you bought a new couch?
Huh?
Yeah,
Nope.
didn't you just say that you bought a new couch? Yeah, good.
No, what are you talking about?
You didn't buy
in
a new
my office?
in your office, yeah, because I got you. Yeah, right. You want to see if it, if it's cushiony enough. I got a recommendation for you. That guy over there to the left,
Okay.
right? Yeah, that guy over there to the left. I got one last one, and we're gonna get you all out of here on this one. Again, I appreciate everybody joining us here on the program today. You know, the insight and the responses were as I expected. You know, again, not only diverse, but on point. I mean, it really was on point. I think this stuff needs to be said. And like everybody here, we all can agree, or we all in agreement, that this stuff needs, these types of dialogues need to continue. And I'll do my part as best I can, having this platform, to make sure that they continue. Because there's a disconnect, okay? And like my grandfather used to say, what's right is right, and what's wrong got to be addressed. Because there's such a disconnect, it's just that thing which is greater than us, okay? You know, it's about to, it's coming down. That's what it is. It's coming down. But this last one, before we get out of here today, I wanted to ask you all. The Wall Street Journal wrote an opinion piece a couple of days ago. And the title of this article, Systemic Police Racism is a Myth. Ms. Hill, I'll ask you. Yeah, go ahead. Go on ahead. Do your thing. Do your 1, 2. Yeah.
Well, the patrolman comes from the old school patty rollers in the first place, which were they patrolled the plantation.
Got you.
So yeah, it does come from systemic racism because their whole occupation comes from patrolling the plantation. So
gotcha. Yeah.
That's it.
Malakia, systemic police racism is a myth. You agree with Ms. Hill?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like completely ridiculous to call systemic racism just a myth.
Yeah.
Like at all.
Yeah. Completely ridiculous, right? You'd be surprised. Ms. Hill, you'd be surprised. It's one guy, and it was a thread, okay? The guy who posted it, and he and I, when we talk sports, we kind of cool, you know what I mean? But when he posted this, something or another, and I said, "What, are you kidding me, man?" And we went back and forth. Matter of fact, some guy put a picture up. You know how they do the little memes or whatever it is? It's a meme that when two people are going back and forth in a debate or whatever you want to call it, back and forth, there's a meme that they put up, some guy grabbing his popcorn and he kind of sitting back like, I got to, I want to see this. Yeah, that meme. So some guy put that under this thread, me and this guy. It was about maybe 250 something responses, and all of them were just me and this guy. It was a couple of people that was like, we got a good one today type of deal. But I'm like, man, are you kidding me? Said something about the guy in that house, quote unquote, because I don't even like really mentioning his name, 45, said something about the system he was set up to fail or something. I'm like, man, are you serious? And then put that article, the systemic police. I said, man, goodbye. I'm not going to insult my own intelligence. Okay. By continuing to go back and forth or whatever it is. Because when you at some point when you see it ain't going nowhere, then you got to get on up out of there, right? Okay, yeah, okay. So I'm glad we all, we all get it, right? Double J, systemic police racism is a myth, huh?
Well, it is if you want to look at it from one
perspective,
tunnel vision.
Got you.
And saying, from the perspective of that article, again, which is entirely an opinion-based article, and stated the fact of how many the police killings take place by race or ethnicity, rather. And so, unfortunately, what that didn't take into an account was mass incarcerations, which have a history
Thank you.
of being from privately funded prisons. You wouldn't have judges that went to prison for taking bribes by handing down harsher punishments if it was a myth. Additionally, you wouldn't force the African American community, taking it a step further than that, with saying, look, if you want child support or welfare, then the only way you can do that is if the man isn't in the household. So now you're forcing, circumstances to keep folks in poverty, because now the gentleman cannot support himself because of that outcome. Therefore, now you have survival instincts that take place, increasing the likelihood for such an event to take place. On the other hand, now you have children that are growing up without either both a two-parent household or simply put a father figure in the home. Again, allowing the system to repeat itself, and we'll keep on going from there.
Yep.
Based on that same data that was shown, we being the United States of America, we're tied with Mexico. And why that's interesting is, Mexico has never prided itself on its law enforcement, not to mention they are all armed because of the reality that they live with, which is the cartels. And you're tied with civilian shootings with a country that is in peril.
Wow.
The United States was only trailing, I want to say Honduras, or one of the Central American countries that by many, the majority would have deemed it third world. So at that point, just from those two facts alone, tells you need to reevaluate what's happening. It does not matter. And truthfully, if you've seen those statistics and said, you know what, it's not just happening to you, it's happening to us, then you should be equally as outraged. You should be marching. You should say, we need to change something, instead of trying to denounce one group and say, well, it's happening to us more, so that means you shouldn't complain about it. Wrong. Change it.
Y'all see why he my co-host, right? I'm just saying. That's my dude, Double J right there. I'm just saying. Khalil, we're going to come to you last, but before you say anything, man, I just want to point out to the listeners and the people here. Double J, you brought up prisons or whatnot, and I want to mention, Miss Hill, if you're not familiar, are you familiar, let me ask you, Miss Hill in particular, are you familiar with a magazine called The Nation magazine?
No.
Okay. I'm going to give you all a little homework assignment, so to speak. You know, if you choose not to, that's fine too. But I want you all to look up an article written by, written by this guy I'm about to mention, but it was written for The Nation magazine. And the article is titled Prisoners of Profit by Tim, T-I-M, Reqwarth. If I'm saying that correctly, I'll spell it R-E-Q-U-A-R-T-H. He wrote that article. I came across this maybe about a year ago now, and I've been meaning to do some sort of show or piece or community conversation or something on it, and with my hectic work schedule, I just kind of never got around to it. But I was going through some paperwork today looking for certain information to put together for the show or whatever, and it slipped out of I said, oh, wow. I was using it as a bookmarker. And I said, oh, wow. I said, man, at some point I'll probably bring this up. This might be, pertinent to what we got going on today. I want you all to check that out. You want to really see how systemic, how deep it get? Oh, yeah. Yeah. When I say it's by design, woo-wee, it's by design. It's by design. That's all I'm going to say on that. So, Khalil, let me ask you. You've been with me in the car a couple of times, man. We've been riding here, riding there. Systemic police racism. Do you recall a time where you felt that our lives maybe were in danger or threatened during a police stop?
Plenty of times. I remember we were in the car. I think we were in Garfield at the time. I had to be about 13, 14. I remember us being pulled over. It was, I want to say it was dark outside, real dark outside, late at night. And the police said something about a seatbelt. I'm like, huh? What you talking about, man? And, you talk to him politely and everything. And I remember my heart beating fast. You don't know, anything could pop off. You hear the stories of other black people being pulled over. That's all you thinking about. So my heart racing, I'm scrambling. I'm not moving. I'm being real still, not making any sudden moves, because that's what they teach you how to deal with it. But I think when you see stuff that goes around and then it happens to you, well, not really, necessarily the violent part of it, but when you're in that situation, it teaches you how to deal with it. It taught me that, this could happen to anybody, because on that day, that could have been me. I could have been, a George Floyd or whatever, God rest his soul. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's, I think me personally, it taught me a lot, taught me how to deal with people in that situation. And you just got to play your cards right, be still, be calm, and do your best. Do what you can do.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff from everybody today. And I'll get us out of here on this note. Why does racial profiling have to be a rite of passage for our children? Why? Yeah. I want to say thank you to all my guests who joined me on the show today. And, of course, my co-host, Double J, Malakia, Miss Robin Hill, and Khalil. You like our rhyme right there, boy? You don't know nothing about that. Anyway.
Man, stop it.
Yeah, I really did. I appreciated all the perspectives, the opinions here, what everybody had to say. I think it was very, very necessary, very needed, and any other adjective or however you want to describe it. This was absolutely wonderful. It really warmed my heart to hear what everybody's had to say in the perspectives, the various and the diverse perspectives here on the show today. So again, I want to thank you all, and I say, I hope that we can all do this again sometime. Would you all like that? No, y'all don't want to come to my house. It's all good. That's all good. Y'all don't get no more invitations. And on that note, it's been fun, but we got to run. We appreciate y'all for listening. Don't forget to check us out right here on the Spreaker.com network. Go to the search box and type in The Shop Report. And while you're there, would you please give a subscribe, or a prescription? Yeah. Or you can check us out on Facebook, Twitter, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and give us a follow. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And you can hit us up via email too, theshopreport365@gmail.com. Oh, and we also have our website up, theshopreport.com, which we are still continuously working on, but we're getting better. One day at a time is what I say. And if that don't work, Google it. For my man's Double J, Miss Malakia, Miss Robin Hill, and Khalil, and for all those who follow and support us, we say thank you. I'm Barbershop J, and you've been listening to Shop Report. And remember, the next time y'all want to know what's really going on, man, come to the shop. Walk-ins are always welcome. Holla!
Okay. Did we just hang out?